This is by far the most flattering introduction I've ever had. And thank you once again thank you for bringing me to Hack in the Box we have a disconnect, okay. AV always gets you, right? And I think there's also some echo if you don't mind. Yes, we got screen. Right. So, welcome, good morning. Thanks for getting up early and attempting to suffer me over the next 45 minutes. And Ellie, thank you so much for your welcome address. Thank you for reading my mind and setting up the tone of the talk. My talk is a couple of warnings before I get into my talk and set up the agenda. This talk is disruptive. There may be things that you may not like to hear, but then these things have to be said. And the other warning is there are block diagrams in this talk, so please put up with the block diagrams. And the other thing is Silicon Valley is coming up later this April, so do watch the show. Right, I've been doing Hack in the Box for many years now. I've been doing InfoSec for many years. This talk is going to be a little bit of back to the future as well. We're going to rewind the tape to 2001, when I got onto the scene doing InfoSec in a very ground-up way. We were all hackers. We were all people who would innovate, who do new things because we love challenges. And over these years until now, the whole scene has become very formal, very industrialized, very business-like, highly politicized, and sort of the whole theme of cybersecurity is pretty much on the minds of every citizen in the world. What I want to do is kind of take a look at where we came from and where we're going ahead. First, we will begin with my favorite topic, attacks. Attacks have been evolving ever since 2001. You start popping root shells up until a point now where attacks have become highly sophisticated beyond several people's imaginations. And only when we see it in the field, we go like, wow, this thing also happened, eh? Yeah, we've known attacks have gotten sophisticated. Over the next 2 days, you're going to see a lot of sophisticated attacks being presented on these stages in this conference. What about the targets? From 2001 to 17, targets have also shifted. We began by popping servers, then moved to applications, desktops, browsers. We then went to mobile attacks, attacks in our pockets, and now we have the power to attack populations at large, en masse, bringing even concepts like sovereignty into question. And now if we take a look at defense over the years, we've been trying a lot of things with defense. We've been trying to prevent several situations. We've come up with several measures, all of them different from each other. But the end goal, the effect has been the same. They all end up getting bypassed. There's one defense bypass after the other. And I've seen this happen over the years. Several people say that, oh, we have this new technology with blinking lights that's going to put an end to all exploits. And yet, another hack in the box happens. And yet, the same shells keep getting popped. Now, it's not like, all the defense sucks. We've been saying that, but that's not really true. Defense is now slightly misunderstood. It's time to kind of reset the definition of defense, and that's what the talk's going to be. If you look at the new types of attacks that are coming, they're even beyond what we are capable of defending today. One great example of new types of attacks coming up, Rowhammer. This is like the first time I read about Rowhammer, I was mind blown. Like, wow, we always thought RAM preserved memory integrity. But it turns out you hammer rows of RAM, you can flip bits, and you can get privilege escalation. And now you can weaponize it with JavaScript to put things in perspective. I mean, do we even have a vague idea of defending against Rowhammer? Maybe performance counters or something, but truth be told, not. We don't even know if certain situations, certain systems are vulnerable to row hammering. Or if it's happening, do we even know that we've been row hammered merrily? Another example of not an exploit, but an exploit delivery technique, it's kind of close to my own heart because I pulled it off 2 years ago at Hack in the Box, is Stegosploit. I got up on stage and talked about how to deliver exploits represented as pixels in an image. This is not an exploit, it's just an exploit delivery technique. But the idea is you're delivering an exploit with something that is presumed innocent, a JPEG file. And you don't suspect a JPEG file at all until it comes and owns you and still looks pretty on your screen. So what do we do about these things? It is actually, let's ask ourselves another question. First, let's come to terms with things. Let's come to terms with the fact that there will be vulnerabilities. There's no getting around that. It's a way of life. As systems evolve, there's new features added, there's new functionality added, there's complexity, and what complexity brings is what I term as Nakatomi space. If you've been fans of Die Hard, this is a definition that I read on an architecture blog. It's got nothing to do with InfoSec, but Nakatomi space today exists in every complex infrastructure, in every complex file format, in every complex software, in every complex network. And it is these gaps that the attackers find, they traverse, and they hit their targets. If we think about preventing Nakatomi space, don't even think of that. It is an inherent thing that comes with every infrastructure. Take it, deal with it. What we need to be aware of is that this space can be traversed very effectively by attackers. I mean, today's attackers succeed because we're not even thinking about the Nakatomi space. We are only reacting to what they do and then try up building defenses around it, only to be attacked in a different way. So here we go. I'm going to rewind the tape to 2002 when we first started doing exploit development. A bunch of us would get together, do exploit development for the lols. A few of us are sitting here in the audience already. And you come up with a shell, you go talk to Hack in the Box or at Black Hat or at other conferences, you party around, and you get your fame on the internet. This was all fun and games until the industry started reacting to this whole thing. In 2001, the big target was Microsoft. Like, everything happened on Microsoft. Unicode bug, code red, and Windows users getting slammed. And it was those times, we didn't know it, but 2002 was rather a dangerous time. Two parallel timelines emerged. Two parallel reactive timelines emerged. And I'm going to talk about what happens when the reactive approach takes place, and it is usually wrong. So, on one parallel timeline, we started piling up against exploitation. We started coming up with all sorts of technologies to mitigate against exploits. And new technologies keep being built up at great cost of building them, of deploying them, of troubleshooting them, and of adopting them. A new animal emerged. This animal is called the mitigator. The mitigator was conceived by a friend, Halvar Flake. He drew this sketch up, and then I colored it, and the mitigator is a well-intentioned, but a short-sighted and not terribly effective alligator, always working on making exploitation harder. And this is what we say, right? This is what we say in exploit development terms, that, okay, exploit mitigations is going to raise the bar to make exploitation difficult. So yeah, the mitigator raises the bar until it sees no more exploits. And this is the truth. Basically, InfoSec is about telling stories and representing stories with cute animals to drive points forward. Because otherwise, the CISOs don't get it. They don't get the fact that, oh, you have this register overflow. No, but you give them a mitigator and raising the bar. Oh, I get it now. Right. So this is one of the timelines. We've been seeing a slew of exploit mitigation technologies come up, only to be bested by new techniques of attack. So where is this going to go? Is this going to finally solve the problem? Logically, no, because you're not fixing the root cause. It's definitely making it harder, but it is not a panacea, as it has unfortunately been marketed to be so. Now, another parallel timeline, going back to 2001, and a rather disturbing and a dangerous trend happened. And this happened when Microsoft strikes back. This was the agenda in 2001. Few remember what happened in 2001. Today, we have this whole scene about responsible disclosure and all. We're kind of getting a little mature with it, but in the early days, this was rather an aggressive move. This was a memo posted by Scott Culp using rather hard words like anarchy, criminals, and safety, security is for your safety and security that we have to expose cyber criminals and round them up. This was a knee-jerk reaction to Microsoft getting slammed left, right, and center, and their products were being made to look bad. So what do? You react to the slamming. The reaction was, well, there were a few cybersecurity companies around the time, a lot of research being done. I was in one of those companies, so I know firsthand what happened. Like, we would come up with new research, we would submit the new research, and these guys saying, oh, you cannot do this, you cannot break us, you cannot make us look bad. And then we would say, oh no, we're going to talk about this at Black Hat or Hack in the Box. And they say, oh, you can't do this. So Microsoft formed an alliance, got all of the cybersecurity consultants together and said, hey, if you want our business, stop doing this. You will report only to us and not to outside. And under the whole guise of double speak and double think and new speak, this whole organization for internet safety was formed. Basically, it was a cartel. It's like, okay, you want to talk about this, you're going to lose our business contracts, straight up. So keep it internal, keep it closed, and let's not talk about it. The whole propaganda of responsible disclosure was floated at a closed doors meeting, and then, hey, loss of signal. I wonder if it is intentional. Okay. Let me try. It's on my screen. Pull the plug, put the plug back. Click the slide. Nope. Back on. Excellent. Microsoft will allow me to talk about this. Right. So this happened. 2005, Cisco Gate. Some of you may remember at Black Hat, they sent an aircraft with lawyers, literally like taking razor blades to the presentation binders and stripping out Michael Lynn's disclosures about IPv6 issues in Cisco routers. And this became a real mess. Lawsuits were threatened. Cisco looked back, conference looked bad, but then lawsuits were settled. But these knee-jerk reactions led to another trend. And in 2009, a few researchers got up on stage at CanSec West and declared that there would be no more free bugs. We are trying to do research, we're trying to submit bugs, you treat us badly, we're not going to do this anymore. If you want sharp research, you're going to have to pay for it. So if you look at exploit development in 2012, things became really crazy. Now the cost of exploitation is very high. There's no public domain exploits. Exploits are being sold in the underground, traded, hoarded, used for commercial purposes, used for military purposes, and political purposes. It's now become a rather shady and sketchy game with very high numbers attributed to it. This is not how we hoped it would be. Information was supposed to be free and research was supposed to be free. Sadly not. So what happened? Another reaction. The defenders tried to buy back their bugs, saying, okay, we'll pay you bug bounties if you turn the bugs back to us. Great concept in principle. It was managed very well in the beginning. A few companies got it right, like Google got it really right. They wanted to crowdsource security intelligence and basically find the bugs. Not only we will fix it, we will roll out a patch in less than 24 hours. And this was a commitment established by Chris Evans. So this picture was taken at one of the Hack in the Boxes, I think 2011 or 12, or I forget when. But then something really crazy happened. Stakes started getting high. And you now start bidding higher and higher prices with the one underlying premise that, oh, we need to keep on bidding higher stakes because otherwise the researchers are going to go and sell the bugs to the bad guys. Truth be told, that never happens. If you look at human beings, there's two types of human beings. Those who will always want to do the right thing, and those who would, well, inverse of that set, right? The people who are going to sell bugs to the underground will always sell bugs to the underground. That is a fact. They're not going to be turned over and sell bugs to the researchers. And people like us who are sitting in this room will rather keep the bug or even burn it, but we're never going to sell this bug to the underground in the underground trade. We'd rather disclose it or let the bug die. It is not a matter of price at this point. Bug bounties try to fill a reactive need. And with this cost escalation, under the guise of bug bounties, the whole game started backfiring a little bit. You have bold statements made that we're going to pay you $1 million for a bug bounty on an iOS bug. Except this is not being paid by Apple. This is being paid by someone who wants to acquire the bug, and they're going to pay you $1 million. And guess what they're going to do with the bug? How are they going to monetize $1 million? Think about it. This is not where we wanted bug bounties to go. My policy on bug bounties is I'd rather not play the game anymore. And coming back to more reactive security, we have another situation that has happened over the years. The word security has largely been misunderstood and misrepresented as compliance. So the first point I want to make is compliance is not security. This is a picture from my hometown. Traffic is notorious, or the rules, or the lack thereof. The rule in our hometown is that somebody riding a motorbike must wear a helmet. The rule excludes what the rider behind has to do. And if this is compliant, yes. Is this secure? Hell no. What will happen if the poor woman falls off? There's no protection here. But they're compliant. So are all these enterprises who are compliant. They're fully PCI DSS compliant. Basically, anybody who gets breached today is fully compliant with all the standards. And yet, breaches happen. So somewhere we've kind of made a wrong turn. Security is turned more towards compliance. And I keep on hearing these words, risk reduction, all the time. If you go to a large conference with a big trade show, you're going to see a lot of security by risk reduction products. If you look at the bottom of all these products, all of these measures being aggressively marketed, they basically follow only 3 principles. They're based on rules, signatures, and updates. All of 3 are reactive. And nowadays, you have the term machine learning thrown in to get more VC money. But basically, you're trying to detect known attacks and then defend against them and then blink a few lights when things happen. And the marketing has also kind of been synonymous with this reactive approach. In the past, we had tall marketing claims by Oracle, who claimed that they're going to make their software unhackable. And guys like David Litchfield made the product look like Swiss cheese with a number of holes in them, one coming out almost every day. Nobody's learned from that. Even today, aggressive marketing statements are being made that we're going to protect against 99% of all the malware. Well, guess what the other 1% does? It is the other 1% that's going to own you. And this is the whole reactive nature of exploitation. Basically, existing defense measures don't match attacker tactics. And this is because attackers don't follow compliance standards and certifications. They do whatever the hell they please. Let's look at the defenders and what the defense has been doing. And let's look at the key person in charge of defense, the CISO. Sadly, this tweet tells it all. Today, the CISO is rather set up to be a scapegoat for any failures. This is not how it should have been. Again, rewinding the tape back to 2001, IT was booming in 2001. IT was seen as something that would propel the business forward. And the CIO position came to be, and the CIO position got a lot of respect. Very soon, this whole attacks and exploitation and hacking started happening. So the CIO says, oh, I don't want any of this. Let us now create a separate role called the Chief Information Security Officer. And because of this division, two things happened. Infotech was seen as a business enabler. Infosec was seen as risk reduction. Guess where the big budgets went? The budgets went for enabling business, so nowadays you have marketing and business trying to do reckless things with IT. And then the CISO has to basically deal with cover your ass. If everything goes wrong, blame the CISO, let's not blame the recklessness. And this is a very disturbing trend because, sadly, InfoSec is now being viewed as a cost center. And the goal for the board members is to keep the costs low. And Ellie mentioned really well that it is the board that has to take notice of the fact and enable proper defense by empowering this job function. How do you do this? You walk up to a CISO and ask them this one very important question. Who are the scarier people? Attackers or auditors? Choose your defenses. Who are you really defending against? If you're defending against auditors, this is not the conference for you, this is not the talk for you, you may get up and go and have breakfast. But if it is about defending against the auditors, then let's talk. Then it's time we made security great again, not by building firewalls, though. This is not what we want to do. We really want to improve things. We really want to redefine the word security. We want to remove the definition of compliance and reapply the definition of defense. Security is all about defense. It's not about compliance. It's time we first accept this. And for this, I've kind of laid out 7 principles. I'm loosely calling them 7 axioms of security because principles didn't really fit in the slide and axioms did, so I squeezed the word in. And I have basically created these 7 thoughts. All these thoughts revolve around one theme, that it is time that we started defending ourselves with proper information and proper intelligence. It's all about intelligence-driven defense. It's all about making the shift from reactive to proactive. Accept the facts, let us now learn how to defend. And how do you want to now redefine defense? First comes the definition of defense itself, that defense doesn't mean risk reduction. And the CISO's job is defense. I was trying to look up what the CISO's job function is, and somebody had made this huge mind map. I mean, this is the truth. This is what CISOs have to do day in and day out. There's all sorts of activities over here. But there's one activity that clearly doesn't belong in this picture. And this activity is 90% of a time suck in the CISO's daily job, and this is compliance. It's time that CISO says that compliance is not my job. Once you relieve yourself of the burden of compliance, you get a lot of spare time and energy and budgets, and I do hope they do allocate 10% of the budgets for defending the organization, not for being compliant. It is time we make another fork in the road. It is time we take the CISO's role and divide it into 2 again. The CISO's job is InfoSec, which is defense. It is about defending against attackers. And now we have a new position created called the Chief Compliance Officer, whose job is simply to defend against the auditors. This has to be the new cost center. Pay the piper, get the auditors out of the door. Now let's talk about defense. And let's talk about defense properly. Let's do it right. The second principle is intelligence begins with collecting everything. The NSA and GCHQ have taught us this very well. Yeah, retain, collect, analyze, and then process it. This context, I mean for an enterprise, not for like nations and all. I'm kind of not very happy about privacy being compromised at this point. But anything within the realms of being collectible, excluding privacy measures, should be collected. I mean, today the cost of storage is minimal. You don't really have to pay much for storage. It is costlier to delete than to retain. Now, what do you do with all these collections? Keep in mind that historical data has fantastic value. You go back to the past, learn what has happened, and then build the analysis to defend yourselves for the future. The most important component of defense today is a well-engineered security data warehouse. And this is going to be the source of all your intelligence. Where do we get this intelligence from? Now, there again, we had some reactive measures. There were companies selling pew-pew maps. And we're going to sell threat intel, and these guys are attacking each other, and you get these things live on the screen, missile command going on. This is not security intelligence. It's a joke. Real security intelligence comes from within your enterprise. Basically, all you need to do is look within, analyze things going on, and take a few lessons from the big boys, the Googles, the Facebooks. If you look at the way their defense is done, it is not done by commercial products sold in the enterprise. They go for organic security. Basically, grow it yourself. Homegrown tools, which are now wonderfully distributed and open sourced by the makers of these tools. For example, I've been telling CISO enterprises, how many of you are using OS Query? It is a brilliant platform. You can basically query anything going on in any process in your enterprise using a single SQL-like language. And use this, analyze your sources, figure out what's going on in real time, build a good blue team around this, put these tools in the hands of the blue team, and give them a carte blanche to defend the enterprise. Don't get in their way. Just like we've been making a case for red teams to attack, let the blue teams defend unencumbered. Bring good talent on. Support open source. Grow your own tools. Share them. Improve them. Learn from them. And distribute them out. Use them. Tell stories about them. And if you want to see where you want to get good talent, don't look any further. Just look out in the ComSec area, in the tracks. You're going to find the talent. If you support these initiatives, the talent's going to come and build a very good defense organization for you. Now, several times, you have this whole distortion of reality. It's like, am I hacked or am I secure? Halvar Flake made this point in a keynote a couple of weeks ago, is that you can never really tell whether a system is hacked or secure. And that led me to my third axiom, which I call as Schrodinger's hack. Let us take a cat, put it in a box with poison, connect it to a Geiger counter, and close the box. You don't know if a system is hacked or secure, but let's just accept the fact that it is hacked and secure at the same time. Every system exists in two states parallelly. It's only when you choose to inspect will you learn the truth as to what the state of the system is. I mean, this is basically the rationale for penetration testing. And what this axiom translates to is basically test realistically. Do not test with bullshit assumptions. Today, whenever I'm ordered to do a pen test, you rather have the foregone conclusion that they want to see that the system is secure. So what kind of testing will come out with this outcome? If you want to test and prove that a system is secure, here are the rules. This is the testing strategy that we're sometimes asked to do. Wait for a new production build. Everything's going to be fixed in the next build. Don't test now. We're going to test later. Great. Don't test on production. Only test on UAT, because production is fragile like a butterfly. You can't let it go down, whatever. Perform non-intrusive testing. Yeah, great. It's like me getting a massage without the massager touching me. Fantastic. And then, all of these, by the way, are out of scope. No social engineering, no mobile attacks, no doing this, no doing that. Great. Tell that to a real attacker that this is out of scope, mind you. And lastly, test during off-peak hours, which basically means 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. And only when Saturn is in the right constellation and it's a Wednesday and you're wearing something orange. Otherwise, don't test. The system's going to keel over and die. Yeah, if you test this way, then your system is secure. If not, consider that there's a problem. The fourth axiom, basically, if you can't measure something, you cannot use. Security is all about metrics, and this was this point hit really home last year when I was listening to a keynote by Marcus Raynham. He made a great point about keeping metrics and what metrics do for enabling InfoSec. Metrics basically prove the point of what you're doing. Whether you're succeeding, whether you're failing. It is a way of appreciating the blue team's efforts. It is a way for telling the board that this is what reality is. It is the way for telling users what to do or what not to do. Metrics, security without metrics is meaningless security. How do you establish metrics? Well, there's several factors, and we're going to look at a few of them. There's not enough time in the keynote to go through all of the list. But basically, take anything that is measurable from your security data warehouse, measure it, and see where the trend is going. Is it going up? Is it going down? And what do these up and down trends mean? Is it improving things or is it degrading things? Most importantly, metrics are your best defense against bullshit. There's a lot of bullshit out there, and sad fact is to defend against bullshit, you need 10 times the energy for defending against bullshit than to produce it. It's only with metrics that you're going to prove your case in point that this is succeeding or failing. Because somebody else in the board will come and say that, hey, we're going to move to the cloud and save $500,000. They're pulling their numbers from their asses, but if you don't have metrics, you can't say that this is a completely bullshit move. They say, oh, well, yeah, prove me wrong. And here are the numbers to prove you wrong. Speaking about metrics, it's time we talk about users. By users, I mean not just the organization's own employees, but the organization's customers as well. Users in the collective sense of anybody who is using your organization's resources. We've always blamed the users for failure, and it is time to kind of change this notion. We cannot continue blaming users for everything. Now, granted, users do suck. But the truth is, it is not that one size fits all users. We've been treating users with the same thing. Yeah, with my internet banking, they'll force me to change my password every month. It's like this 8-character bullshit nonsense. It's time we abandon this type of stupid, narrow-minded thinking. If I have a ridiculously complex password, why force me into changing it every month? Because some jackass auditor said so. That's not how it should be done. I mean, the truth is, users, if they're not guided properly, they're going to do stupid things. It's Schneier's quote that a user is going to pick dancing pigs over security for any opportunity. And technology also is a kinetic enabler for stupidity. Because if you give technology to the hands of users, then they do fun things like this. They tweet their debit cards. Now, how do you defend against such users? But this is, this is kind of, the problem is out there. The truth is, we as an industry have not made much headway in terms of user hardening progress. We've done a lot about software, but we've not done a lot about user hardening. So how do you do user hardening? First, you pull out those metrics from your security data warehouse. You draw a curve, and this is how your initial curve will look like. This is what I call as my InfoSec maturity curve. The x-axis is the maturity axis, the y-axis is the frequency. And with this maturity curve, you're going to divide your user base, your customer base, into 4 groups. The hopeless, the uninformed, the proactive, and the rock stars. The hopeless, always going to be hopeless, always going to be an enigma. Leave them alone. Let them burn. Rock stars, they're doing way better than you expected. They're overperforming. They're the people you should learn from their practices and make them the new best practice. Leave them alone as well. Don't bother them. They'll continue doing good work. Learn from them, appreciate them. Then you have the other group, the proactive users who are doing the right thing, and if guided well, they are on their way to becoming the next rock stars. Leave them alone as well. The reality is your measures have to be applied to this 1/4 of the slice, the uninformed group. They are well-meaning users. They will do the right thing, but they are not guided properly. It is this 1/4 slice, your job as a CISO is to guide them well and try to shift them to being proactive users. The curve will automatically shift, and then let the hopeless still burn. There's a trivial amount of them. If you lose them, no problem. Coming to axiom number 6, It is time we put creativity back into defense, not reactivity. A great presentation was done by my friend Harun Mir on bringing canaries and honey tokens back into the game. Let us actively look for attackers. Let us put the bait out there. Let us put our probes, our feelers, and let us keep monitoring the environment for little things that jiggle, little things that go bump, and then try and act upon them before they become a serious threat. We've been doing it in the fiscal world. We've been marking money bills and seeing where the money flows. The idea is not to stop the propagation, but to learn and lead us to the greater problem of where the laundering is going or where the cartels are. Apply these techniques towards creative defense. And the last axiom is basically the CISO has to make security visible. The CISO has to make defense visible. The CISO has to make defense count. And visibility extends all over, visible to the customer. Take Google's example. They're doing a great job of telling the user where they've been logged in from, how many concurrent sessions are there. This control is enabled for every user to see and also change. They have the power to log people off. These type of measurements should be also brought up not only to users, but to your employees, to the blue teams, to the red teams, and eventually to the board as well. How do you make security count? What makes visible defense? I mean, there's several things. You can have several line items that's going to make for visible defense. Here's a few thoughts. First of all, that maturity curve. Keep improving that maturity curve. Keep checking it. Keep pushing it. Whatever needs to be done has to be done. If it's not working, try a different strategy. Reduce the blue team's response time. The time taken for the blue team to detect anomalies, to detect attackers. Try challenging them to keep detecting faster and faster, and let them go creative over it. Don't tell them how to do it, tell them what to do, and let them surprise you with new ways of doing this. Third, to the board, it's all about money. Money talks. So demonstrate this. Money saved is money earned. Demonstrate a constant reduction in frauds or fraud attempts. This will enable greater budgets. This will enable you to get more toys and get cool people and build stronger blue teams. Produce creative defense tools. Open source them. Talk about them. Bring the community together. Let others use these tools. And let your tool makers look like champions. And then you get improvements, you get the collaboration. It's time we rolled out a lot more defense tools. There's a lot of attack tools out there. That's because attacks are cool. Attacks are being incentivized. Attacks are being shared with the community. It's time defense tools take the same center stage as attack tools. Attract smarter talent in InfoSec. I mean, this is a paradoxical situation. If you do cool things, smarter talent will come. If you don't, smarter talent will leave. Sad problem is most of the smart talent in InfoSec today is wasting their time in compliance. This has to change. It's time compliance gets off this bloody boat once and for all. And with every week, I tell the CISOs to take a CISO strength check, a fitness check. This is inspired by Matt Swan. Matt Swan created this Maslow's pyramid of InfoSec defense, of incident response. I've kind of adapted it to a hammer test. Every week, see how high you can strike this hammer. Can you go all the way to the top? If not, keep working your way every week and demonstrate proactive defense. So, the end question to ask is your InfoSec team doing something creative every day, something proactive? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of my talk. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I don't know if we have time for questions and answers. I think I have 6 minutes and 20 seconds. I would be happy to take them. Most importantly, enjoy Hack in the Box. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saumil. Questions from the floor? No? Not quite yet. Maybe after the first coffee. We'll take coffee break for now. Saumil will be around for the next 2 days. So if you have any questions, feel free.
I'll be happy to hang out with you, talk to me. Right. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Saumil. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you back here after the coffee break in 15 minutes. Thank you.